Eoin Donegan here from Pure Networks. Today I'm joined by Fin Roche, Senior Solutions Consultant for Palo Alto. Thank you for joining us on the couch, Fin.
Thanks very much. Great to be here.
If you'd just like to give us a quick introduction in terms of your role in Palo Alto.
Sure. I'm a Senior Solutions Consultant with Palo Alto Networks. So I'm on the engineering side of things. Been with Palo for the last 3 odd years. So so it's great. I'm mostly working in the strategic space in Palo Alto in Ireland.
Excellent. Yeah. So Palo Alto are recognised as a global sort of market leader when it comes to cybersecurity. How long have Palo Alto been established in the Irish market, and how have they evolved in the time?
Yeah, so we've been here since probably about 2015 and started off as like a 2-man band where there was like an engineer and account manager. But we've grown out significantly in that amount of time, and we cover a lot of different functions here in Ireland, whereas we have like education leaders, we have tech support leaders, all the sales functions, obviously, and even HR. So there's a lot of different roles that are being conducted out of Ireland, but we're broadly a kind of a remote type workforce anyway. So we're working for a number of different markets as well in that.
Sure. And how important is the Irish market? Like, it's a unique market in the sense that we've got a very high percentage of SMEs in the overall profile of organisations. How important is Ireland to the Palo Alto global brand?
Yeah, I think it's extremely important. Ireland has a very unique position where we are, because we're kind of like a technical hub, for a lot of like the bigger companies. So, the likes of Google and Microsoft and that. And we're the only English-speaking EU member. Okay, and so that represents a lot of opportunity for innovation, specifically in the cybersecurity area. And we also, in Ireland as well, have like various different technical hubs throughout the country. So you've got Cork and Galway, for example, and those are areas of innovation. And the Irish government is very good in terms of like R&D, so doing a lot of research and development. Palo Alto Networks sees that as kind of like a springboard into Europe. So, definitely it's an important and thriving market. And we also have a very good indigenous, cybersecurity market growing up around us as well. Okay,
sure.
So you've got all of those technical people and, good languages. And you also have about 500 odd companies who are security focused. And they brought in like over 2.1 billion in revenues last year alone. So, it is a thriving market, and Palo Alto Networks recognises that, and it's worth the investment.
And you mentioned innovation there. I suppose hand in hand again, Palo Alto and innovation. What key innovations are driving Palo Alto's business currently, even from an Irish or even an international perspective?
Almost afraid to say it, but it is that key AI, right? Okay, conversation that everyone is having at the moment. So definitely AI is one of those kind of springboard technologies. It's, every maybe 10, 15 years, you're going to see like a different shift or a movement, and definitely AI is that. And so I guess the conversation that we're having at the moment is like, how can we secure AI, right? And get in there at the start, because, we've been on this rodeo before. We've seen where, we have large technical innovation and we didn't have security built in at the core of that. And we're trying to get ahead of that and ensure that we have a suite of products out there that customers can build with confidence and ensure that they have like security at that core of what they're building. So so it's very much about AI and what we're doing with AI and embedding AI in our products and services.
And do you find that Irish organisations, are they at the forefront of that, or are they a little bit kind of wait and see, or maybe just buying their time a little bit to see how it evolves?
Yeah, I mean, it's a mixture of all of what you have said there, right? I think the more technology-focused customers are definitely kind of getting in their, sleeves rolled up and kind of getting in there and looking at what they can do with it. And there's others then that are kind of standing back and waiting to see how that evolves. But I would say, in terms of what we see in the marketplace today with AI is that Ireland isn't as far behind as it was, let's say, with the cloud adoption. Yeah. Like there is a lot more curiosity, and it's a lot more accessible as well, than it used to be. And they're definitely dipping their toes, and I see an awful lot of use in terms of the tooling. So, your LLMs or your co-pilots, etc.
Yeah.
And less of that kind of like in-house development. That's what I would say at the moment. But, this will change rapidly. And I definitely think that the gap that used to exist there before between, let's say, Ireland and the UK or Ireland and the US, that's slowly closing, and we're far more innovative or are ready to take that kind of like step forward.
Sure. And what pragmatic advice would you offer to Irish businesses currently who are a little bit sort of unsure of where they are on their security journey? How can Palo Alto support that? What would be the obvious pieces of advice that you would offer out to?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you're on this AI journey, okay, and you start thinking about adoption, just adopt with security in mind, right? Okay, so just ensure that you are taking that layered approach, because AI isn't just one thing, right? Okay, it's multiple different areas. You need to ensure that you have the visibility and control over those tools. They're just as dangerous as downloading something from the internet. You don't know where the source code is coming from, and like your users will use these tools because they are making their workday easier. They are faster. You can get your work done much faster,
more efficient overall.
Exactly. Yeah. And so people are going to use those, right? Okay, because you will always lean to the easiest way forward. So you can't stop them from using the tools, and you shouldn't, right? Okay, because they're a value for your organization, but you need to ensure that you are monitoring them, that you know what's being pasted in your LLMs, that you understand how your users are using them. And we have tools that are capable of doing that discovery for you, in a very efficient manner.
Sure. So, Fin, it's no surprise that the cyber attacks are more sophisticated now than they ever have been before. We can see some of the recent headline attacks with sort of Jaguar Land Rover.
Yeah.
Heathrow Airport recently was shut down, amongst other European airports as well, where they had to go back to basically writing on boarding passes, which was their kind of plan B, which is not that sophisticated in this day and age. But what are you noticing? What are you seeing out there that's a real sort of a red flag potentially for Irish businesses, or even from a global point of view?
Yeah, a lot of what we're seeing at the moment, and it seems to be a general trend, is this third party type of attacks, right? Okay, where they're leveraging like platforms like Salesforce or marketplaces like AWS in order to be able to propagate breaches and reach a larger audience, and I think it's a whole hygiene thing, right? Okay, it's and it comes back, right, to a kind of an old phrase now at this point, but still very relevant, about zero trust, right? Okay, so you just need to ensure, I think for a lot of those kind of third-party breaches that occurred, it's over permissive capabilities, right, for users, for applications within your organization. And, you do have to reevaluate, after you have a breach like that, what do we need to do? What do we need to change? And the majority of the time it does end up being those kind of over permissive capabilities, right? Okay, allowing people into the organization or applications into the organization that shouldn't have been there in the first place or shouldn't have had that access. And I think, as we move on and, we are dealing with a more agentic future, right? Because that's where we're going, right? You're going to be dealing with personalities that are agents, right? And they will have their own agency to talk to each other. And so breaches are only going to get more complicated. So it's even more important that we, understand those personalities, understand those different identities, and put, use our knowledge, right, that we have used for the last couple of years when we've been talking about zero trust, bring that into our knowledge with AI and how we actually adopt AI in the marketplace as well.
And you mentioned zero trust, which is a topic I'd just like to delve into a little bit more, because I know there's lots of different understandings of what zero trust might look like. Some people might think it's a product. Other people understand that's a principle. But can you give, from your point of view, what you understand zero trust to look like, the framework of zero trust?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is just that, right? It's a framework. It is not one product, right? It is an approach, right, to how you're going to organize your business. So, it's, you trust nothing basically, right? So, and you only allow those objects within your environment. They could be endpoints, they're user identities, machine identities. You only allow them the access to what they need access to. So you're essentially creating like micro perimeters around things.
Sure.
If I can use an example, you have a nice large TV here, right? Okay, for conferencing. And there are many organizations that would have like tens, maybe hundreds of TVs for that same purpose within their organization. If you have like a capability, let's say like device ID, right, that we have with Palo Alto, it means that you can create a policy that has like all of those TVs of a specific brand. So that could be Philips or LG or whatever, and that they can only reach out to their update website for updates. And you might want something like, I had an organization, they wanted like the weather, right, on the TV as well. They can only reach out to weather.com. They can't reach out to anything else. And so you're building that kind of like, little perimeter around those devices. And that to me is a zero trust approach, right? You don't trust that TV, even though no one's logged into it, that it's not going to be a source of a compromise at a later point. So you're kind of like shutting it down. And really, that approach is, I know it's not fashionable, right?
Yeah.
Okay, as much anymore, right?
But
Everyone's talking about
pragmatic,
AI. But it still is, yeah, exactly. Yeah. It still is part of like, the security policy that you should employ. So no, it's definitely not a product, a single product, or even a group of products. It's more. So
it all falls back onto the security policy, really, as defined by the company in partnership with maybe a partner or a vendor.
Yeah.
And I like the analogy someone gave me before. I think it was someone in Palo Alto. Is basically zero trust is like, it's like an airport. So you're different security checks you go through, baggage checks, passport checks before you get on the airports. It's a similar type example to your TV, which is a really good one, actually.
Yep.
Good. So the other question I was going to ask you then, obviously people, employees in particular, can be the weakest link. A lot of the time, you can have a very good security profile. You can have invested significantly into your security posture. Yet still there's a breach, and still the employee can click a link or can be compromised through impersonation. Can you give us some thoughts around how companies can understand that and what they can do to try and help? Maybe what a rate of change. Some people are very slow culturally to change. They're in a company a long time. How can we support that change?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a two-pronged approach, right? Okay, so you have like, obviously on one side there's education, right? And I think that, till now we have a pretty good track record of, having that education, that cybersecurity education within organizations. And it's been particularly effective around links and clicking phishing links and that, right? Okay, so and there's a lot of organizations, I think, especially with regards to their cybersecurity insurance, will have to have programs that they will deploy within their organization. And that has a certain degree of success. But like even you or I, right? Okay, we could, click on a link from what we think is a trusted source, and we could be compromised, and we might not even know it at the time. And for those, you do need to have a layered approach, right? Okay, as an organization, you do need to protect your employees as well. There's only so far they can go, and whether we like it or not, attacks are getting far more sophisticated, right? So, like 2 years ago, you could have identified a phishing mail by maybe misspelling or
just the look and feel might be slightly off.
Slightly off. That's completely changing now, right? Okay, especially with ChatGPT and Gemini, right, where you can just put in what you want. You can have all your spellings wrong, and it'll spit out something absolutely concise and perfect. Obviously, again, there's something a bit off about that, but it's much less likely that you'd be able to cop onto it. And so organizations need to be able to put those protections in place, and they do have to have a layered approach, right? You can't just have a perimeter-based protection mechanism anymore, right? Okay, that just is not good enough, right? You need to be able to look at the data. You need to be able to look at what people are typing. And, some of those will be like a cut and paste even, right? Okay, from like a browser So you do need to have that kind of layered approach in order to be able to look at all of those different vectors where the infection can actually occur. It's not just all down to the user.
And the social engineering side of it, is that being driven by AI now as well? So it's kind of like putting urgency on an email, transfer money into this bank account, pay this invoice. Is AI driving that? Is it capable of driving social engineering and kind of?
Well, I think, right, okay, that there's a new aspect to this, right? Okay, you have people that in the past just didn't have the capacity to drive these phishing campaigns or do malicious type of acts. But now that's quite open to them. Like you and I, we could go onto ChatGPT now and we could vibe code some little program, okay? And there are people with malicious intent that are doing the exact same thing, So you have a much broader range of people out there with good ideas that they can now actually action very, very simply, which they weren't able to before. So that is in a way opening up another level, right, okay, of threat that, we haven't really had to deal with before because we were dealing with a kind of a niche kind of group that, had good knowledge of tech. So that's kind of one area.
Sure. And AI can literally spray attacks 24/7 simultaneously, and
well, it's you need AI to fight AI.
To fight AI.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's the machines because it's
machines,
the speed at which they work at.
Terminator style stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
It really is.
Yeah. But it's the speed at which they work at. A human can't do that. So you do need to have like those same checks and balances in place for AI type of attacks. And it's only going to get more sophisticated, like, you know what I mean, as we go on and as agents decide what they want to do and have a different maybe a deviated path from their what their user initially wanted them to do. We have to be able to identify those things as well. So
sure. And your typical Strata Palo Alto firewall, we all know, or you and I know, and we'll be hopefully passing the message on about the importance of the configuration of that firewall. Absolutely. You can invest money in firewalls and it's like driving a Ferrari in second gear if it hasn't been configured properly. So how important is that? Because we find a lot of customers would need support with that still. And there's misconfiguration, or it doesn't evolve the way it needs to with the way things are evolving.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about what a firewall is now, or Prism Access, which is essentially the perimeter in the cloud, it is now really a number of tools that we had initially been kind of like individual capabilities, but they're now really in the one platform and they're working together, and they do need attention, right? So often, we're the vendor and we, sell the capability to the customer. In reality, the customer has a good idea about how to use maybe 30% of that, okay? So they will have the traditional firewall, let's say, they'll set up the app ID, they might not set up, let's say, the user ID or the user capability.
Sure.
And that's why I suppose it's very important for yourselves, like, Pure Networks, like to be able to come in and act as that trusted advisor to the customer, right? You are the boots on the ground. You have, diamond status partnership with us, and your engineers are very highly certified in our area. So you also know the customer, so you're bridging that gap, right? Okay, between knowing the customer and their business and what they need to implement, because the reality of the situation is they might not need to implement every single capability within the firewall, but they will need to do it right, okay? Because, at the end of the day, threat actors are looking for any way in possible, right? Okay, they're looking for any little gap at all.
Sure.
And that's, where kind of Pure can come in with their expertise and ensure that that's built out and, in line with what the customer needs.
And exactly what we do for our current customer base. But we do find any sort of net new customers we speak to, like sometimes there's a lot of configuration. And look, it's good for the customer to understand that, and then, we can support them as well. Cortex, it's another sort of flagship endpoint protection product. And then MDR on the back of that, like you have a lot of logs that people don't really have the resources internally. This is another trend, not new trend, but we've seen it over the last period of time. They don't have the resources available to be just constantly looking at the information. So we have MDR now, Unit 42 MDR from Palo Alto again, which is another flagship product. Can you talk to us a bit about that and the technology itself?
I mean, the XDR capability obviously is the endpoint detection and response. We have it has actually taken off in the last couple of years. Okay, we have never seen so much success with it, and essentially the customer can deploy it to their endpoints, but it also takes in like data from their networks as well, right? So it kind of brings not just the endpoint element to it, but maybe some of their firewall element, and they can bring that in and have a look at the kind of end-to-end attack, right? And we have that MDR capability then on the back end. So that is the managed detection and response, in which they're able to do like a monitoring, right? It's like let's say like L3 kind of monitoring of your solution and identify patterns in the attack. They can also, like in the background, deploy different investigations, right? Okay, that would have maybe low signal type alerts, so they can actually really kind of get in and see those weaker kind of attacks that might be happening.
Sure.
That your organization might be able to identify. They also supplement your own security team, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So all the information is shared via all Palo Alto customers. In real time.
Yeah. There's like a console that they can kind of go into. We have meetings with them, but they get full access to the reports and the intel. That we're able to provide them as part of that service. And we'll also work with their teams as well, to educate them, to show them what we're after seeing, so that they can, identify those in the future as well. So.
Yeah, and Strata Cloud Manager, probably the new graphical user interface in the last 12 months.
Yeah, so we would have, I think it must be about 2 years now anyway, right? Okay, but it's so in the beginning there was Panorama, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, and Panorama was that management capability for the firewalls,
single pane of glass,
for exactly, for Prism Access as well. But we have so many tools now, right? So and we also found that having a capability there that could incorporate the logging, right? That multiple different, let's say, firewalls and platforms have today, and make sure that it's all seen in one kind of succinct console, where people aren't swapping between different consoles and looking at different
which is a frustration for many customers.
People just don't have the time for it anymore,
Sure.
And the UI has really evolved, and so Strata Cloud Manager kind of brings that, right? It's gives you like a real kind of bird's eye view of your environment, so very quickly you can kind of see how things are going, and then you can kind of drill into different aspects of it. So if it's AI ops, or if you are actually looking at maybe the CASB capability, if you've got CASB within your environment, or data security, and then also you can do your configuration from that console, and it takes away that kind of HA requirement for HA, or sizing as well, which was another problem. Like sizing out the panoramas. You had the kind of smaller boxes, and then you had a really big box, and there kind of wasn't too much in between. But you don't have to do that or worry about that anymore with Strata Cloud Manager.
So eventually, Panorama will it'll become redundant eventually, and Strata Cloud Manager.
I'd say there'll always be kind of like a niche need for Panorama. We have a lot of customers who are like in like the OT side of things, mm-hmm. and on-prem, even though that's changing as well, but on-prem is a requirement for them, or government type organizations.
Sure.
So I reckon Panorama will be there in some shape or form, for a long time to come yet. But Strata Cloud Manager is definitely, that way forward for a more like agile and kind of future forward, I suppose, look of your environment.
And the blend of on-prem versus cloud adoption, are we like, obviously there's still a lot of customers who still have firewalls on site, like, so that migration is speeding up, or is it becoming a little bit more static, do you think? Or
I think it's kind of like there was like a large trajectory towards the cloud, and I think it's kind of balanced itself out now a bit. We did see a lot of kind of like data center consolidation, mostly because the footprint of a lot of systems has gone down, over the years. But I definitely think that there'll always be, right, in some capacity, a requirement for like that hardware capability on site. Whether that is maybe if you're going with SD-WAN, we have like an Ion box, okay, for our Prisma SD-WAN. It might just be that, right, okay, because that can do network segmentation as well, and then you can have the the threat and all of that, inspection capability done on the Prisma Access side of things. Okay, so you can just have different configurations now. I guess it's like jeans, right? Okay, so before it used to be just like the flares, everyone had flares. Then there was like wide pants, everyone has wide pants. But now today you can get any type of style you want. So it's the same thing, right? Okay, so if people are going to go virtual, they can go virtual easy. If they want, hardware, they're going to go hardware. And, data centers are only increasing in footprint, right? Okay, sure. So they're only growing. So we do probably see, a pickup in that side of the business, right? Okay, where we're seeing larger kind of data center.
But that variety in technology is really important because a lot of companies now are born in the cloud. They've never, and everything is SaaS applications, and it's a different conversation with them completely.
Absolutely,
than a more traditional customer that's been around for 100+ years.
Yep.
Prisma Access Browser. It's another recent enough piece of technology from Palo Alto where everything is now protected in the web browser. Can you give us a little bit of background to that and the benefits that a customer might realise with having a secure browser?
Yeah, really, we're actually quite excited about that technology. So I must correct you. It's Prisma Browser. It's been renamed again. So so it's Prisma Browser now.
Not
so
PAB
PB,
anymore.
not PAB anymore. Yeah. But still the same great technology. So we've just seen the take up on this product has been huge. I think that we are in the kind of like enterprise browser era now at the moment. It is allowing customers to not have to give people access to the network if they don't want, right?
Sure.
Okay,
so which is typically good for someone with a lot of subcontractors.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean, or even like an organization that has that they purely are looking at SaaS apps for a lot of roles, right? Okay, so you might have someone like in accounting, let's say, who's doing like Salesforce, their SAP, and pretty much their email, and that pretty much everything they do is all in the web. It's all SaaS based, right? And so again, back to zero trust, right? Okay, why give them access to your network if all they need is access to the SaaS applications, right? Okay, and do it in a kind of a secure way.
So you're really limiting the risk.
Exactly.
there.
You're making sure that that they only have the access that they need to do their job, right? And so with the Prisma Access browser, you can do like multiple different things as well that will enable you to browse safely, right? Okay, so you can have things like, for those CRM that will contain very private information, okay? You could have the person's username or their email address as a watermark that goes to the page. So even if they take a photograph and they post it somewhere, you're able to see it. You can have numbers obfuscated, so if Fin is accessing a HR system, she doesn't really need to know details like the address of the person or the salary of the person, right? And you can obfuscate those on the page. So when they go to the application, you're only allowing that person to see what they need to see to do their job. You're not giving them any opportunities, right? Okay. And, obviously it has it has a small amount of, access control in terms of, if your endpoint hasn't got the latest AV or whatever, right? Okay. So you can have there's a small piece of that. And then of course it's integrated with your SSO. So it's a really exciting piece of technology and so easy to install as well. You don't have to have admin access. You just
very light touch,
exactly, and you sign in with SSO, and away you go. Like I was on holidays in August there. I only had my iPad with me. I needed to actually access my email other than this tiny screen on my phone. So I was able to actually download the browser and log in, and away I went. I was able to work away just on the iPad from holidays. So
what we mentioned earlier about slow cultural shifts really with people and how they operate over a long period of time, this can really help that because you're building an intuitive kind of a browser for them and protecting them to a certain extent from themselves for want of a better word.
And we use it in our organization, we have it fully deployed and rolled out. And again, it's Chromium based, right? So it just looks exactly like Chrome.
Yeah, performance is really good.
You just, bring across your your bookmarks. You know, there's an import function. You bring across your bookmarks, and honestly, the look and feel is the exact same, right? Okay, you're not, you know, you're. It's very easy to change people's habits. You know, I know that people like their browsers. I like my Firefox or whatever, but you know, they slowly brought it in to the point where we were able to access everything, and then all of a sudden, if we were on Chrome and we tried to access, let's say, our corporate Gmail account, it would say, sorry, you need to have, you know, your Prisma browser in order to be able to access this. But I still could like access my own personal Gmail account from it. So, you know, I was able to make that separation between
you could also and switch that off if you want.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So like, it's very intuitive.
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's completely up to you on how you want to tune it for your organization or groups of users within your organization.
Yeah, which is becoming the requirement now, isn't it? To have technology that can be tuned and fine-tuned, because everyone's situation is so unique and different.
Exactly.
And you have an particular affiliation with AI. Can you give us some sort of like down the track, what are the like big innovations that or even if you don't know exactly what they are, what you think they might be in the next sort of 3 to 5 years?
Oh God, 3 to 5 years. I mean,
is it too hard to look that far ahead?
3 years ago, there wasn't even ChatGPT. No, but the next big thing that we're going seeing anyway is agentic AI, right? Okay, I mean it's already here.
But that's all, right? And that's in web browsers too. Like I think Atlas are already.
Atlas was just launched there. That's the ChatGPT one.
So that's ChatGPT now in your web browser, so it'll be much more quicker and more.
They have their own browser, and like everything is contained within that. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But in terms of like agentic AI, this is really where we're going to see. Like up until now, you're kind of seeing like with the LLMs, that's AI 101, right? That's you interfacing with the AI, you asking questions of the AI. As we move into like an agentic AI future, we're going to have agents that are only talking to agents, right? They don't necessarily need to interface with you. And we have agents that have specialities, right? So you often hear the example given of booking a holiday, right? Okay, even though it's I don't think you'd necessarily it's the best analogy, but you've got, you know, an agent that will go and look at flights, and you have an agent that will go and look at hotels, and you've got an agent that will go and their speciality is for cars, and then those guys come together and they create a holiday package or 2 or 3 for you for what you want to see. And that is a very simple analogy of what we're going to see in the future, and that's why identity is going to be so important. So you see a lot of organizations that are leaning in on you know, we have to know what they're doing. We have to have a specific identity. And that is why, right? Okay, because the agent will have an identity, right? And if it goes rogue and decides to, I don't know, imagine a holiday for you, or decides to, you need to be able to keep that in check. You need to be able to recognize what they're after doing.
And fascinating.
Yeah. And like, this is what organizations are doing. They will have literally, you will be a person that will be in charge of a team of agents, like, you know what I mean? And those agents will help you get your job done. And this is happening today. I mean, even in our own product with the XOR, right, which is an automation capability within Cortex, Agentics is coming in now, right? Okay, so previously you were setting up like an automation capability where you would say, do X if Y, right? So you are dictating what's going to be identified, let's say in an email, right? Okay, if it's, let's say, you see a URL in an email, take that URL.
It's a rule-based outcome.
Here. Exactly, right? Okay, so you are dictating the way it works. With Agentics, you're going to have agents that are going to make autonomous decisions based on an event that happens, right? And that is happening today, right? So we have a product that was launched last Monday. You know, that is part of that SOAR capability. You know, Google and Microsoft and all of these different hyperscalers are coming out with their own agentic platform that you can build these capabilities on, and that is still in its infancy, right? So,
but it will evolve really quickly.
So 3 years or 5 years, I can't even imagine, right? Okay, but it's very exciting to think about where we're going to be in 2 or 3 years from now. You know,
I had a friend. It's a side story, but I had a friend. He was on a motorbike trip, and he was in an area where he wanted to find accommodation for the night, but he used AI basically to look at 20 sites for accommodation. They were all called simultaneously.
Yeah.
And he got back a report like in a matter of minutes.
Yeah.
Prices and which ones had availability.
Yeah.
So it just makes it so much easier.
I know,
that technology is incredible. Like.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, if you take that, that question that you're saying, like, where are we in 3 years' time? I mean, 3 years ago, we used to be going, isn't Google Maps great? Remember when we used to have to get out the map? So, the idea of where we're going to be.
It's hard to envision it sometimes.
Yeah, it is, you know what I mean? It is. And that's why I suppose, just going back to that first question that we had at the start, that's why having security as a foundation in there is so important, right? Okay, because you're not doing the bolt-on security that we had to rush to do, when we have in the early 2000s, right? Okay, when we started seeing, all of these threats to begin with, having that security layered right now at the beginning, where we're doing the innovation. It's going to be supremely important for the future, because the AI attacks are already happening. You have the the story there, about the bank that was embezzled, right? He had a video call with his seniors, and his seniors were on the call, and he did the transfer of a couple of million based on the conversation with his senior members in the call, but it actually turned out that they were all fake, right? They were deep fakes. So even when he was on a call with these people, he didn't recognize the fact that they weren't actually the people that he worked with.
Which is like a problem with social media now currently, where people can't actually understand or visually see the difference between AI and
you see all these
reality.
Social media posts. Please help me. Is this video real or is it AI? It's every second post now at the moment.
Sure.
What I mean? So
So what advice, in summary then, what advice, again, just looking at your sort of security expertise, what advice would you give to companies if you're to look at 3 things they could do, fairly practical? They're not really sure where they are. They need to invest a little bit. Not really sure about how to go. What 3 pieces of advice would you give to them?
I suppose on the theme of the conversation we've had here, it's very much look at your organisation and understand what's important in your organisation so that you can protect it, right? Okay, so there's no point in buying a whole bunch of tools and not really knowing what you want to protect, right? So, and that can happen in tabletop exercises. It can happen through conversations with yourselves, like in Pure, right, where you sit down and go through what is important for you in your organization to keep safe, and then build a program.
Always a great starting point.
Yeah, exactly, right. Okay, build a program around that, right? AI is definitely one. Look at where the uses are in your organization, right? If you have users, and you will have organizations that will mostly be using LLMs, right? If they post sensitive data to those LLMs, then that data can never be retrieved, and that model will actually be trained on your company's personal information, or your and potentially your customers' information. There's loads of stories out there about people dumping the contents of an Excel spreadsheet into ChatGPT and asking them to format it better, right? Okay, so you need to understand when that's happening. And how to deal with it. So again, it's probably a 2-pronged approach, like we spoke about before. In terms of phishing, there is an education a body of work that has to be done there, right, to teach people how to kind of responsibly use the tools. There also has to be a way for you and your organization to be able to monitor, right, what tools are out there and make decisions based on a number of different criteria. Okay, it could be like compliance frameworks that those tools adhere to. It could be what the tools are capable of doing, right? Okay, and it could also be like a reputational thing, right? Where you might see them, and we have a capability called AI Access today that is able to identify whether you can have sanctioned tools where you don't need to do too much deep dive on it. You can unsanction them, so you can decide from the actual policy that you create that those tools you're not allowed to use them. And then you can have what we call tolerated apps as well. So those would be your potentially ChatGPTs, right? Okay, where you want to put an extra layer of visibility on what the user is doing. So you might use DLP policies to identify what they're posting. You might reject, if they do source code and they paste source code in there or something like that, you'll get a notification to say you can't put this type of data into ChatGPT. And again, what you're doing is you're coaching the user, right? Okay, so they have the tools. They're going to go out and investigate how to use them. You'd never know, your company might take off from one of their discoveries or their innovations, right? So you don't want to stifle that, but you do also want to keep your eyes on it and understand what's going on. So AI obviously is top there, and the other thing is talk to us. We have a lot of knowledge and a lot of information now. You don't have to come directly. You can go to Pure, and Pure will come to us and tell us what we need to do, right? Okay, for that organization. But there's loads of help out there. There's loads of people that are trying to find the best way forward, and the only way you can do that is by kind of opening up and having those conversations.
I say it's about having the conversation.
Exactly, you know what I mean, with your peer. There's no point in sitting back and kind of monitoring to see how things will work out. I think really talking to the people who have the specialization in that area is going to help your organization at the end of the day.
But I think it's important for organizations, and definitely getting to the point now where people are embracing it, and rather than sticking my head in the sand and a little bit of an Irish mentality, sure, we'll see how we get on. You really need to embrace it. It needs to be part of the overall company strategy. And as you mentioned, you need to understand what the crown jewels are first, build a security profile, and then look at the product set. We do find there's a lot of people who've bought there's a lot of noise in the market, a lot of people who promise certain things. They buy a lot of IT, and then they're it's all clunked together, and it doesn't do exactly what they wanted to do. So I think the conversation early on helps, and bringing in expertise that Pure Networks would have and Palo Alto would have is key to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's lots of free tools out there as well, that, like Palo and Pure will be able to direct them to. There's not all of money value over things. We have things like, Clara and SLRs and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So there are tools out there to kind of show you the way, and kind of build out that business value as well, because while you might be concerned about it, potentially the people further up the chain or your board might not have that as an issue that they want to address, okay, or that they might say they don't have budget for it. But if you can surface these things to them and demonstrate, why you need to be, more proactive in specific areas, you'll have that there for a business value purpose, and those tools can let you do that.
And legislation is driving it now with DORA and NIS too.
Absolutely, yeah.
And many suppliers or organisations are demanding that you have a certain security profile. If I'm buying your product or you're selling your product to me. Yeah,
GDPR and all those bits and pieces as well. So, we have a more global economy now as well, and a lot of those capabilities are, they want to be able to adhere to those frameworks so that they can sell into those locations, so that they're kind of like a trusted source, so very important for that as well.
So thanks for joining me on the couch today.
No worries.
Super informative and insightful. And we'd love to have you back in about a year's time.
No problem.
So you can tell us about the robots.
Yeah, digital me will come back, yeah.
Brilliant.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.